Hello, this is Matthew Armstrong and welcome to Transformation Talk. Today I'm very excited to be speaking with Anne Osborne. Anne has been a fruitarian for over 20 years and is the author of the book Fruitarianism, The Path to Paradise. And like I said, I'm very excited to speak to Anne, and thank you for taking the time out of your fruitful life to speak with me today.
Thank you very much for inviting me to talk to you.
Okay, I am very excited because it's the first time I've spoken to a fully fledged long-term fruitarian, and it's a stretch for my own beliefs, because over the years I would have just believed that yes, a vegan raw food, but fruitarianism, that's too extreme, and you're the first person I've come across so far that has been long-term, showing great results. No visible signs of aging, and just seeming in great health. So I'd like to learn more about that and the path that you've been on. So what first inspired you to take this path?
Well, it really goes back to when I was at university and I decided to become an ethical vegan, and it was purely for ethics, nothing to do with health, because I was 19 and I thought I was in pretty good health. So me and my friend overnight, we decided to give up all dairy products. We were already vegetarian. Didn't expect any health effects at all. That wasn't the reasoning behind my decision. And at the time, my student digs were at the bottom of a hill, and I was at university in Canterbury in England, and the campus was at the top of the hill. So every morning I'd have to walk up this hill. And even though I was only 19, by the time I was at the top of the hill, I'd always be wheezy and out of breath.
Yeah.
Never really thought anything of it. But immediately that I gave up dairy products, like immediately the next day, I noticed I was up the top of the hill and I wasn't wheezing. And that was kind of like a revelation, really. It really hit me, and I thought, wow, I changed my diet, not at all thinking of health, but here's immediately a really big health benefit. And so from that moment on, I started thinking about there's a real connection between what we put in our mouths and how we feel and our health. And I was just interested to learn more. So I read a lot of stuff, tried different types of vegan diet, tried macrobiotic vegan diet, tried sort of the Ann Wigmore, lots of sprouts and wheatgrass type of raw vegan diet. And they worked pretty well. I felt pretty good, but I didn't stick with any one of them for longer than a couple of years. They didn't really work, that well for me that I wanted to stick at them long term. And then when I was 24, I was in my hometown of Leicester in England, and I was part of a local animal rights group, and we had regular speakers, and one speaker was a guy called David Shelley, and he was a fruitarian, and he was the first fruitarian I'd met, and he was just a great advert for the diet. He was, fit and healthy, great colour, he cycled everywhere, he was a runner, and it was like, wow, he's doing something right. Whatever he's doing is working for him. And a group of friends, we were all vegan, and we thought, yes, we want some of what he's got because it's working. And we were very interested to sort of try this type of veganism, and that was the start of it. And at the time I was in the early stages of pregnancy with my older boy, so I was I'm not going to go straight into the fruit, I'll do more of a transition. So I gradually ate more and more organic fruit, less and less cooked vegan food, until after about a year, just over a year, I was on a 100% fruit diet. And I was very fortunate because I had the support. I started out with a whole group of friends. We were all doing the diet, so we had that social support, which I think is very important. A lot of people are very isolated when they start out on raw food diets. They might have internet connections but not necessarily know anybody face to face. And another thing is, we were accessing really good fruit. As you probably know, in the UK, you don't always get good fruit all year round. So we formed an organic buying group, and we were able to access really good organic fruit from all over the world. We had these amazing mangoes from Egypt, we had these sweet grenadilla from Burkina Faso, we had Italian apricots, and they were all really good quality. So I think that was a vital factor, getting that really good quality organic fruit, because there isn't really anything in greens that there isn't in fruit, or nobody's been able to tell me so, for any element or any mineral or any vitamin that you can't get in fruit. But obviously the proportions and the ratios are different, so therefore it's very important, if you're eating fruit, to get fruit that's grown in good soil, that's grown organically, biodynamically, wild, homegrown. So that is a big factor, I think, in the success of being on an all fruit diet.
Okay. And so now you live in Queensland, so the climate is vastly different to the UK, right?
Yes, I think the climate's a big thing because you get sun. We get good sunshine all year round, probably most of the year, enough sunshine to get vitamin D because, you know, of the position we are relative to the equator. Whereas the UK, I think one thing that you crave when you're on a fruit diet is sunshine because you need to, you know, produce vitamin D.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few months of the year in a lot of parts of Central and Northern Europe where you're not going to be able to produce vitamin D. So the climate for sure is much more conducive to a fruit diet in Queensland.
Yeah. Do you think you could have sustained it if you would have continued living in the UK?
I think there's certain parts of the UK. I lived in Penzance, which is very far southwest, which gets the most sunshine. When I lived there in the winter, I didn't feel a need to go away. I felt that I got enough sunshine. But when I lived in other parts, I would go away for 2 months or 3 months a year, go to Southern Europe or the Canary Islands, because I needed the sunshine and I needed to get better quality fruit. So I think that was an important factor.
Yeah.
Living somewhere where you're not going to get good quality fruit all year round and you're not going to get access to sunshine, you know, take a holiday if you can, go somewhere where you can top up your vitamin D and make sure you're getting good quality fruit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Makes sense, and I can relate to that. So you don't add in any green leafy vegetables, any nuts and seeds. Is there a reason why that you just stick to fruit rather than adding in the other things like the nuts, seeds, leafy vegetables, etc.?
I think when I started out, really there wasn't the 80-10-10 diet as such. There wasn't the gourmet raw. There were sort of two main schools of thought. There was the Arnold Ehret high fruit with greens if desired, and then there was the Anne Wigmore, you know, lots of greens, sprouts and less fruit.
Right.
And I was influenced by David Shelley, who was influenced by Arnold Ehret, so it was always the fruit, and I was never attracted to greens. You know, I think greens are a great food if you're attracted to them.
Yeah.
If you're getting poor quality fruit, you know, if you really want greens, your body's probably needing them. But I've never been attracted to them, and it's like my kids, you know, sometimes I'll get greens in and they'll just wither away, and if I get good quality fruit in, it gets eaten.
Right.
So I think there's the attraction thing. I'm not attracted to greens. Maybe if I wasn't getting good quality fruit, but it's always been a real priority for me to get good quality fruit, you know, whatever that takes. If it takes sort of like searching around loads of markets to get it, or having an organic buying group, or getting to know local farmers, or foraging, that's sort of a big priority for me and for my kids, is to get good quality fruit. And I think if you're doing that, there's less of a need for greens. Certainly if I suddenly became attracted to greens, I would probably eat them. But then ethically, I do prefer not eating greens, because the ethical side that appeals to me, or part of the ethical side that appeals to me, is that you cause minimal harm. You don't directly kill anything by eating fruit. Obviously there's indirect killing with sprays, so you try and eat organic, or with transportation, so try and eat local. But actually direct killing, you're not supporting that.
Yeah, yeah. So how has this affected your life, including your consciousness and everything? Because I imagine that such a long period on fruit would really affect your consciousness, and I suppose your intuition and everything might be heightened.
Yes, I think one thing I've noticed is synchronicity. That you get really good synchronicity when you're on a fruit diet. What I do when I'm on a fruit diet, especially on mono diets, and I tend to think the fruit diet and eating mono is the way that I want to go. That's what I desire to do. That's my standard. And I think if any person is following their standard, they're in a kind of flow with the universe. If you're, you know, eating a junk food diet but you'd rather be on a raw food diet, you're not having that same level of flow, because you're not actually following the diet that really in your heart you want to follow. Whereas if you're following the diet that in your heart resonates with you, I think you get a certain amount of flow in your life. You know, you meet the right people, you pick the right book off the shelf, and there's really good synchronicity. And I think you do get into a kind of flow because you're living the diet that you ideally want to be eating.
Yeah, yeah. And so
and also it does affect your consciousness in a way, because I think when you feel really healthy and well, it's like the biggest wealth you could possibly get. And so you have a less of a desire for material things. The material world doesn't become so important, like getting, you know, the latest this or that, or the latest computer, or new things, because you really realize that new things don't bring happiness. That happiness is brought by inner wellness and inner contentness. And I think, for me anyway, a fruit diet brings that inner wellness.
Right.
And being happy on that level and satisfied on that level, you realize that that's really what's important. And there's a contentedness, I think, that you get that you don't necessarily get if you're, you know, on a diet that you don't really want to be eating.
Mm-hmm. Great. And is there emotionally, do you ever get negative emotions? Do you get sad? Do you get angry? Or are you always on a joyful, happy state?
Yes, I think you do get negative emotions as such, and I think your emotions can be heightened on a fruit diet, you know, because you can feel things. I think you can be very sensitive sometimes
Right.
to stuff that's going on and to suffering that's going on, but I think you've always got to focus on the positive, because there is suffering in this world. It's a part and parcel of this world, and the suffering isn't lessened if you focus on it. I think the suffering's lessened if you're positive and you try and go out and do what you can to be positive in the world. So I think it's very important to be positive, and I think fruit does make you happy. You know, it's sort of, there's a nice energy about it. It's got a lot of light. Fruit is the food that has the most biophotonic energy. It has the most light energy, and I think that gives you a kind of sense of lightness and happiness that you may not get with the denser foods.
Yeah, yeah. And is there? Tell me, what would be like a daily food intake for you look like? What would happen from morning to night?
Well, I like to get up and do my sort of jobs before I eat, like do exercises, walk the cat because he goes for a walk and things like that. And then I'll have seasonal juicy fruit for breakfast. So whatever's in season. So mango season's just kind of passed, so it might have been mangoes a while ago. I've just done a mono orange juice diet, so for a long time I was just on oranges, or pineapples, papayas, whatever is in season. Dragon fruit are in season at the moment. So breakfast is you know, juicy seasonal fruit as much as desired. I believe in eating enough for your needs. So eat until you've satisfied yourself, and I don't think you can overeat. If you're eating mono and you're eating juicy fruit, I think it's almost impossible to eat more than your body needs, because your body has very strong stop signals. It will say, I've had enough of this, you know, it's time to go and eat something else, or you know, I've just had enough. And then sort of mid-morning I might have some more sweet juicy seasonal fruit. Sometimes I eat avocados, sometimes I go over free. So if I'm eating avocados, I'll have some at lunchtime. By themselves I eat mono, and then leave a gap, and I'll have juicy fruit throughout the rest of the day, maybe another 2 meals, maybe another 1 meal. Probably calorie wise, I eat less than I did when I started. When I started I needed to eat a lot more fruit, but then after I did my first extended mono orange juice diet, what I found was that my digestive system was working a lot better. I felt that the fruit was doing me a lot more good, and I felt like I was assimilating a lot more from the fruit. So I found that I needed to eat less. So now I'll eat between 1,500 2,000 calories on most days, and that works for me. I maintain my weight and my energy on those levels.
Okay. So do you eat 3 standard fruit meals a day, or do you just graze throughout the day? How would it work?
Maybe
Generally.
3 or 4 meals generally. It depends. If I'm really busy, it might only be 2 meals. If I'm doing a mono diet, I tend just to have 2 meals. So, you know, it depends. If I'm out all day, it might be 2 meals. If I'm at home, probably 3 or 4 meals.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't tend to graze so much.
Right.
But it's more set meals these days. I think when I started, I was more of a grazer, but it's gone more to set meals.
And you know, you look incredibly healthy, incredibly vibrant, and you come across very, very clear as well. You seem to be very clear, and you've also brought up 2 children as well. So you look great. It looks like it's really working for you. Do you ever get sick? Do you ever get blood work done? Have you ever been deficient in anything?
I do get blood work done occasionally. The last time I had blood work done, everything was fine. B12 was on the low side, but not deficient. And I don't tend to supplement B12 unless when I've been pregnant and breastfeeding, I've chosen to, because I'm responsible for another person. Even though my B12 tends to be on the low side, I've never had any B12 deficiency symptoms, and I have had friends that have had the symptoms, so they're quite clear what the symptoms are, and when they took B12 supplement, they went away. Right. So apart from the B12, everything is in good range. And actually, the last time I had a blood test, the doctor was quite surprised. He knows I'm a vegan, but he doesn't know I'm a fruitarian, and he was looking at my cholesterol results, and he was looking at me, and I thought, oh, what's he going to say? And he said, these are very good. He said, your HDL, which is the good cholesterol levels, he said, I think these are the best levels I've ever seen. And I was like, oh, well, that's good. So, you know, they were really high.
Like really high?
I can't, 3.3 Australian or something like that, compared to, but it's the ratio to the LDL, I think. So he said it was the best, the healthiest cholesterol he'd ever seen. So it's good. I think blood tests can be limiting, because I think they're based on people on standard diets. Also, the ranges of what's normal and what's not has changed a lot over the last 50 years, and yet humans haven't changed so much. I think, for me, a better indication of health is, do your wounds heal? Do you have energy? How's your hair? How's your skin? How's your teeth? How's your nails? But I think some people do like to see your blood results, and if you have got blood results that says, yes, everything's in the normal range and you've got good cholesterol levels, then that can be useful. But I think the bottom line for me is there's a lot of other things that indicate health rather than figures on a piece of paper.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've got my cat knocking everything over here.
I had to shut my cat out because he howls.
she's trying to get my attention by knocking everything over. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Blood tests are good to get a good indicator, but again, just like you said, you got to look at everything. Do your wounds heal, etc. How's your energy, your health, your nails, your hair? Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And what is seen as the norm, quite often, if you're eating a fruit diet or a raw food diet or whatever, you're not going to be in that norm, because it's taken from a percentage of people that don't do those sort of things. Yeah, so I recently got my blood test done as well, and my LDL was really low, and my HDL was like really high, and my HDL was like way above the even the high level average, but
yes.
I don't think that was a problem.
No, I think that's supposed to be good, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think, if you've got doctors saying to you, this is the best level I've ever seen, when people are saying, oh, on a fruit diet you're not going to have good levels of cholesterol, you can say, well, actually, I've got it here on paper. But I think a real thing that's an indication is how you feel in the morning. When you first wake up, do you want to bounce out of bed? Do you feel great? You're ready to start the day? And that's something I certainly didn't have before I was on a raw food diet. I was a lot younger, but the mornings I would feel groggy and a bit hungover, without drinking alcohol. That kind of, I need something, I need a shower in the morning to get me going, or I need to eat something. But if you wake up in the morning and you're just ready to go and you feel good, then I think that's a really good indication of your general level of health.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've brought up 2 children. You've gone through pregnancy as fruitarian and birth and bringing up children. First of all, pregnancy. How was that? Did your diet change any? Was it easy or difficult pregnancy?
Pregnancies were great. I loved them. They were really, really, beautiful time. Felt really healthy, and my diet changed with my second pregnancy in that I got a taste for more savoury fruits. So I ate more avocados, more sweet peppers, more cucumbers. Than I normally do. But apart from that, no, not really. I still enjoyed my sweet fruit, but I did up my intake of the savoury fruits. Wasn't sick at all with either of the pregnancies, just felt very well, had lots of energy. With my first pregnancy I worked till I was 7 months pregnant, and then with my second pregnancy till I was 8 months pregnant. So I had plenty of energy, didn't put on too much weight with both pregnancies, just 10 kilos, so that's about 22 pounds. So just baby weight really. Yeah. Because a lot of people, I think, when they get pregnant, they have issues with putting weight on all over. But I think when you're on a fruit diet, you don't put on any excess weight. The really good thing about the second pregnancy was, with the first pregnancy, I was in transition, as I said earlier. So I was still eating some cooked foods, and it took quite a while for me to lose the weight I put on with the pregnancy, and also it took a long time for my stomach to go flat again. So with the second pregnancy, I was thinking I'm going to have this stomach for a while, and amazingly, the day after I gave birth, my stomach was flat.
Wow.
And I got a picture taken of it. I said, "You've got to take a picture of me," because I couldn't believe how my stomach had gone down so quickly. And yet I was 12 and a half years older, but I think the big difference was that I've been on the fruit diet for, over 11 years.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a good thing for women, because women want to lose their baby weight and they want to get their stomachs flat. So, if you're on a raw food diet and you can do that, it's a huge bonus.
Absolutely. Yeah. And how was it bringing up your children then as on a fruitarian diet? How was it for them? Were their health wise? Did they grow properly? Their mental function, etc. How was all that?
Very, very healthy children, and I think all parents really, they want their children to be happy and they want their children to be healthy. That's the most you can really ask for, and they've both been very healthy and happy children. None of the childhood illnesses, they haven't had, neither of them had measles, mumps, chicken pox, anything like that, despite coming into contact with a lot of other children with those childhood diseases, because really you think, well, you want your kids to have them when they're young, because it's supposed to be, less intense if they have the illnesses when they're younger. But neither of them ever got anything, despite sort of, sharing time with kids that had these illnesses, they never got them.
Right.
So their health's been very good. The growth is different, and I would say this, that children on a fruitarian diet have a different growth pattern. They develop physically, I'm not saying mentally, but physically they develop differently. And I see this is because growth is not just determined by diet, it's determined by hormones. It's our endocrine system that determines the rate at which we grow. And a child on a fruitarian diet or a raw vegan diet is going to have a very different endocrine system. It's going to function very differently from a child that's having artificial hormones in meat and that's also having very processed food that's going to affect their own endocrine system. So a child will have a different growth rate, and I think as well they will mature physically slower. If we go back 100 years, the average age that people stopped growing 100 years ago was 25.
Oh, really?
And now it's 18. Also, the age at which girls started their periods was like 15, 16 on average, and now it's sort of 11, 10, 12 kind of age.
Yeah.
And when we look at the other mammals, what you see is that the longer a mammal takes to come into puberty and the longer it takes to finally reach its final growth size, the longer the lifespan. So I wonder, by our lifestyle, are we really shortening our lifespans because our children are coming into puberty a lot earlier and they're also ending their growth earlier?
Right.
So I think really fruitarian children aren't going to fit on your standard growth chart. It's based on kids fed formula milk and fed artificial hormones, and there's growth hormones in that food, processed foods which will affect the balance of their endocrine system. So my older boy, he grew physically slower, not mentally but physically slower than his friends, but now he's taller than most of his friends.
Okay.
So I do think that eventually they will catch up, but I think there may be more how people were years ago when they didn't have processed food and they took longer to reach maturity. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing when you look at the actual lifespan relates to how long it takes to reach, puberty and how long it takes before you finish growing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to think that we may be shortening our lifespan because our endocrine systems are so messed up.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, really. I know like a lot of kids are hitting puberty even 10 years old now. It's like very young. And I know in Japan, a lot of people have had issues with their health because suddenly their diet's been radically changed with suddenly the massive influx of eating like a Western diet, which they wouldn't have done before. And that can be seen with the difference in the girls, etc. And with a lot of them, they grow like two sets of teeth, and their teeth don't all fit in their mouth properly, because I think just I don't know what it is, too much hormones in the food and the dairy and everything they get. So I think there's a problem there with the growth, which is from the standard diet that's been brought in from the West.
Yes. And we've got so many chemicals as well now in our lives. We've got, you know, sort of pollution chemicals, we've got chemicals in food, and the endocrine system is so sensitive. I mean, these little things called hormones, you know, are microscopic little things, but they affect. I mean, you can see that women that get, you know, premenstrual syndrome, they total personalities can change just from this tiny, tiny little hormone. You know, they can really change. They can be very laid back, easygoing, and then if their hormones get out of balance, their whole personality changes. So hormones are very, very powerful. They influence us all our whole lives, and I really think that this is one thing that our endocrine systems are not functioning at all optimally because of, you know, diet and lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so going with your kids again, did you send them to school? How was that? Did they go to regular school?
My older boy went to regular school. I wasn't sure, but we lived in quite an alternative area in England, and there were a lot of vegetarians, there were other vegans at the school. So he said he'd like to try school. He really got on with school. His first teacher was vegetarian. The staff were very supportive of his diet. The first Christmas he was at school, it was really sweet. The teacher and the teaching assistant made little stockings for all the children, and they put in the regular stockings, they put sweets and, you know, candy and stuff. And they made a special one for Camelo, and they put dried fruit, nuts and fruit in it, and that was just beautiful. So I was fortunate in that his school was very supportive of his diet, and his friends were always very supportive of it, so he didn't really have so many issues at school. My younger boy, I am homeschooling. He's got a different kind of personality, and I just think, you know, he wasn't ready to go to school when he was 5, and so I'm homeschooling him, which is really good. I love that. So yeah, I think a lot depends on the school, depends on the teachers and the other children, you know, if they're supportive of the diet.
Yeah, yeah. I've got this cat that just keeps on trying to climb onto the computer. And your children, did you bring them up completely fruit, or they also had like vegetables and nuts and seeds, etc. as well, did they?
They have nuts and seeds occasionally. I think children need a higher fat diet than their parents. A lot of raw food children seem to love durian, and they love avocados. If my kids were eating a lot of durian and avocados, they wouldn't have such a desire for nuts or seeds, but they do, you know, they'll eat some nuts and seeds. I give them access to vegetables if they want. Occasionally they'd have them, but not very often. It wouldn't form a major part of the diet, you know. And often if I'd get them in, I think, well, maybe you should get some lettuce in, and it would just kind of sit in the fridge or sit on the bench, and just nobody'd eat it.
Yeah.
So not big veggie eaters. But then again, if they're getting good quality fruit, they, you know, potentially can get everything they need from fruit. And when my older boy, he was about 6, and I wanted to get his B12 checked just to see what his levels were, because obviously if they were low I would think about supplementing, but I didn't want to supplement if they were okay. So I went to see my GP and I said, could you please test my son's B12 levels? No, he said, what we'll do is we'll send you off to a government nutritionist, you know. So I went to see her, and I thought, well, this will be interesting. So she gave me a diary, and I had to write down everything he ate, everything he drank for 2 weeks. And I thought, well, they're going to say there's no B12 in this, but what will they say about the rest of the diet? Because, you know, even some people that are on raw diets say that you can't bring up a child on a raw vegan diet. They won't get what they need. So this was a government nutritionist, and the report came back. I've still got the report, and it said basically, apart from B12, which is obviously negligible according to their, you know, standards of what's in food, no B12. Everything else was within required daily amounts, apart from calcium, which was 70%, but everything else was fine. And I thought, well, that's amazing that this is from the government, and they're basically saying, yes, because you're giving your child such a wide range of fruits, and he was having some nuts, that everything's fine. And with the calcium, he's never had a cavity, my older boy. His bones are great. So obviously he was getting enough calcium, and vegans do need less calcium anyway, because, you know, if you're on a acid forming diet, you need more calcium because the calcium's buffered out to correct the acidity. So yeah, so that's just a good reference point to say, well, I did go and see a nutritionist, and she said his diet was good.
Okay, awesome. And did you vaccinate any of your children?
No, I didn't. I think vaccinations, it's a quite a sensitive issue. I think, each parent really needs to make an informed decision. And I think most of the parents I know that haven't vaccinated, such as myself, have made an informed decision. And we've read the pro stuff and we've read the anti-vaccination stuff, and then you make up your mind. A lot of people who just go and vaccinate haven't read both sides of the argument, as it were. And I think that's really, we need to be informed, we need to have knowledge of this. And I think any parent that's thinking of vaccination, if they read as much as they could on both sides, and then they can reach an informed decision based on what knowledge they've got. And based on what knowledge I read, I made the decision that no, I didn't want to vaccinate. And I think also there's ethical issues with the vaccination, in the fact that a lot of vaccines aren't vegan, and they've involved vivisection either presently or in the past.
Yeah. Okay. So what? Any other advice for anyone bringing up raw vegan or fruitarian children? Anything else on that?
I think something that's very important is long-term breastfeeding.
Right.
I think this is an issue that is not always addressed. Our society is not always rational. It'll say it's fine for a child of 4 or 3 to be drinking a glass of cow's milk. That's not wrong. That's fine. That's normal. But if a child of 3 is seen to be breastfeeding still, it's considered very strange, weird. That's not right. Well, that's totally irrational, because it's far more natural to feed a child your own milk than to feed a child the milk from an animal of another species. But this society isn't used to long-term breastfeeding. We've domesticated animals for thousands of years, and as such, milk is considered normal from a cow, but long-term breastfeeding isn't. So if you're considering having a child, I really think all the children I know that have really thrived on a raw vegan diet have been long-term breastfed. I really do believe that children need milk for the first 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
So that leads to, you've got to think, well, am I prepared to long-term breastfeed? What are the alternatives? The alternatives are your child doesn't get milk for those first few vital years, or your child gets cow's milk, which might not be ethically acceptable or acceptable on a health level, or soy milk, again, maybe not acceptable on a health level. So I think that's something that anybody that is considering bringing up a child on a raw vegan diet, think about the breastfeeding aspect. It's not, you don't have to breastfeed in public when you've got an older child. When they get to sort of 3, they really probably have milk a couple of times a day, or if they're upset, in the morning, in the evening. So, if you're not comfortable breastfeeding an older child in public, you don't have to. But I do think that the breastfeeding is something that needs to be taken into consideration. And often the cases of children that haven't thrived on raw vegan or fruitarian diets, there's been some in the newspapers where children have died or been very sick, and each of those cases, either the child wasn't long-term breastfed or the mother didn't have an adequate supply of milk, because really, it's irreplaceable, breast milk, especially for the first couple of years.
Yeah. And you would as well, obviously, you'd start your baby on fruit at what, 6 months or something, would it be?
I think when they're ready, they're all different. Like my older boy, at 7 months, he showed no interest in anything apart from milk. Whereas my younger boy, at 3.5 months, he was trying to grab fruit. So I think they're all different. I think instinctively, if we were living in a natural setting, in a jungle, in a rainforest, and you were carrying your child on your back and you were foraging for fruit, if that child wanted to reach out and get some fruit, it would get it. You wouldn't stop it. So it's not like they're reaching out to get a Mars bar or some processed food that wouldn't be healthy for the child. So I think children kind of know when they're ready for fruit, and then you give them the fruit that's appropriate, the softer fruit, make sure there's no big seeds or pips in it.
Yeah.
Papayas are great food for babies, or mashed ripe banana or custard apple with the seeds taken out, something that's sweet and soft. And if your child's not ready for it, it'll let you know, it'll spit it out. They'll tell you when they're ready to try stuff. And just get them good quality fruit, organic stuff, non-sprayed.
Yeah.
Wild fruit, foraging. Kids love to forage. They kind of connect with their heritage, because we are I believe we're foragers. I believe our design, we've got the hands of foragers. We're going out picking fruit, and kids love that. All children love to pick their own fruit, and I think that's a really good thing to do with your kids. If you're bringing your kids up on a raw diet, take them out foraging, even if it's just to pick your own strawberry farm. But if there's some wild fruit trees, blackberrying, even in Europe, there's blackberries, mulberries, cherries. So wherever you live, you can make that part of your child's, upbringing.
Yeah, yeah, again, makes perfect sense as well. It just seems what's natural to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's fulfilling, not just on a physical level. You've got your food. It's a kind of mental and a spiritual fulfillment, because we are foragers by design. So we're fulfilling our instinct.
Yeah. So, and what advice would you give someone who feels called to become a fruitarian? What would you recommend?
I'd recommend reading, getting information. I think Arnold Ehret's books are very, very good. Mucusless Diet, Healing System and Rational Fasting. Also Maurice Croc's book, Fruit, the Food and Medicine for Man. Essie Honorable, I Live on Fruit. Just read, go to web pages, look at people that have been on fruit diet for a long time, see what you think of them, ask them questions, do your research, have your knowledge. The more knowledge you have on any diet, the stronger your faith will be in it. And get really good quality fruit. I mean, that's the thing. It's essential, and unfortunately, commercial fruit is not grown for its nutrient content. If we paid for fruit, if we paid a value on what the nutrient content was, that would be great. So farmers would be encouraged to put lots of minerals in the soil. But we pay for it on weight. So what farmers do is blow up the fruit with superphosphate and fertilizers, like those exploding watermelons. So they get really big, but the nutrient content is pretty poor. So I think source good quality fruit. Go to your local farmers markets, network with people that are growing the fruit. If you've got a fruit club nearby where people are fruit growers, get to know them, get to know local growers, local suppliers, so that you ensure you're getting a good supply of fruit.
Yeah. All right, awesome. And also want to talk just a little bit about you've done some like long mono diets. I know you did a melon diet for, I think, was it 6 months? You've also done a few long.
6 months is the longest.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've also done just oranges and orange juice for a few months at a time. Just maybe tell us a little bit about that, and how was each of those, and why did you feel called to do something like that?
It's because people often say to me, well, why do you do mono diets? Because you've been on a fruit diet for 20 years. Why do you feel a need to do mono diets? And I think, if we lived in a perfect Eden, a beautiful environment with no pollution, and you were eating fruit, you probably wouldn't need to do a mono diet or feel a need to. But for me, it's like a tune-up. It's like my service, because I live in a world where there's a lot of pollution that I can't control. I have a certain control over the food I eat, but the air I breathe, pesticides. I live in the countryside. I live where they grow pineapples, avocados, strawberries, all of which are sprayed. So for me, it's like a tune-up. It gives me sort of like just a bit of a boost, a bit of a spring clean.
Yeah.
And the first extended mono diet I did, as I said before, that really improved my digestive system. So it really enabled me to benefit more from the fruit diet. And I really enjoy. I get great synchronicity on the mono diet. Things flow. I feel very fit and healthy. My endurance increases. My flexibility increases. So my health benefits. Mono diets have been used by people, like me, just for a bit of a tune-up, or they've also been used to heal serious illnesses. The Great Cure, which was written in the 1920s by Joanna Brandt, was her testimony. She had cancer for about 9 years. She had really bad stomach cancer, and at one point it was so bad that the tumour actually divided her stomach in two. She tried water fasting, she tried different alternative methods, but nothing totally helped her body heal from the cancer. And then she tried the mono diet, the Great Cure, and that worked. And so she wrote the book, and she went to America to promote the Great Diet. And the reasons for the mono diets helping with healing, not only have you got it similar to the water fast in that your body's having a rest, so it's got more energy to rebalance and heal, but also you've got certain elements in fruit that can act like solvents. They help dissolve toxins, and so they can help with serious illness. And then thirdly, at the same time, you've got the build-up of the cells by the fruit energy and the fruit sugar. So mono diets can work at many levels to either just give you a tune-up, or to rebalance your body if you've got serious health challenges.
All right. It does seem like the first time I ever like I said before, came across your stuff was I just saw a video on YouTube, and you're on day 54 of just on oranges, and
Yeah.
uh, and I was I think just starting a juice feast at that time, and I was thinking people were thinking I was extreme. I was thinking just on oranges that's extreme. So it seems extreme, but obviously it's something that really works, right?
And I think over the year you need to get variety. Certainly over the course of a year, get a really good variety of fresh local produce, as big a variety as you can. Obviously, if the quality is really good, you probably need less variety.
Yep.
The poorer quality of fruit, ensure that you get all your nutrients by having a really big variety. But for me, the mono diets 2 or 3 times a year are a really great part of my raw food diet. But
Yeah.
I think, yes, over the course of a year, certainly get a good variety. Don't just do, one fruit indefinitely.
All right, great. And what you've got a book, your book, Path to Paradise, Fruitarianism. Where can we get your book? If we'd like to get that.
Um, on my website, which is fruitgod.com.
Fruitgod.com. Great. And just can you just give us a quick synopsis of what the book's about? Obviously,
The book's
fruitarianism.
It's about my experiences on the fruit diet. It's about the recent history of the fruit diet, how it came about that people started advocating, a fruit diet as being an ideal diet for humans. It's also got information on bringing up children, how to pick ripe fruit. It's got some quotes by people about fruit and fruitarianism, and it's got some information on the more popular fruits.
Okay, wonderful. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we finish up?
I'd just like to say that fruitarianism might not be the ideal diet for everyone, but I do think that everyone can benefit by including more organic, fresh, ripe fruit in their diets.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me. It's been great to get to know you a little bit, and to learn from you. I think you're just a shining example, and your love and compassion really kind of comes out as well, and even in your messages that you send, they seem so bright. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you, Anne.
Thank you very much.